Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video. And in this video, we are here once again with Gmax, working with our rocket, our Hello World type of rocket that we're trying to create. Now, hopefully you find these videos interesting, but if you don't, you can just choose not to watch them. Let me go ahead and switch cam views here so we can see the full view of Gmax and take a quick sip of water. Now, in the last video, we kind of talked a bit about repositioning our rocket and zeroing out the various parts of the rocket, like it has roll, and this part of it has some roll in it, and this part has roll, and these types of things can kind of happen by accident as you're working with the rocket. So it's good to check them every now and then and zero them out. Once I did that, I was trying to create a new fairing. And you saw that I had a lot of trouble there at the end getting the fairing to where this point here was perfectly zeroed out. And what I found, when you zoom way in, you can see that this is off by just a little bit. All of these, when you zoom into the finest amount, the most maximum zoom, all these points should come together and it should be a perfect single point. And what I tried to do was to click the move tool, have this object selected. Of course, the object's already selected, but click the move tool, have this object selected. And if you come down here and you zero out each of these coordinates, in theory, it will make all of these come to a point. So let's give that a try. 0, enter, 0, enter, and then the Z coordinate, 0, enter. And that fixes our problem. Something I did find, unless it's just my imagination, that this wouldn't work in some cases. I know, I'm pretty sure I saw this as I was in between videos. If this zeroing out the coordinate doesn't make everything come to a point, if you press 0.000 and basically hold it down and then hit enter, then it should zero it out. It's almost like when you just type 0 by itself, it's almost like Gmax holds on to some of those invisible zeros that we can't see here. And those invisible zeros, or well, I shouldn't say invisible zeros, but invisible decimal points. So if we know that this goes out to, hundreds, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, tens of thousands, and so on. So it's down here somewhere. There was an 8 or a 9, like way down here in the very bottom. If I go 008, you can see that that's off. And what I saw before was when I just pressed 0 and hit enter, that it didn't perfectly zero it out. But when I pressed 0.000 and held it down and then hit enter, it did perfectly zero it out. I don't know if that was just a fluke or what, but it's something that I thought was worth pointing out. So now we have this part of our fairing is pretty well complete, except we're not going to use it. But let's go to the other end and see what's going on down here at this point. So let's zoom in, way in on this point. And we can kind of almost see that it's basically perfect, but in theory, if this yellow line can be seen, I would say it's off by some amount. So let's just test this. Let's zero out that coordinate, enter. Zero out that coordinate, enter, and zero this one, and enter. Let me try this also, 0.0. Okay, so this one's perfectly pointed as well. Now, what I'd like to try, just out of curiosity, would be to go back to the other rocket, the one that has the fairing that's all messed up, because I just want to know how to fix it. So we're not going to save these changes. Actually, let's go ahead and save these changes. And then we're calling this one Rocket Force C. And let's open the one that was originally giving us problems. This one, it's got a better looking fairing anyway. And let's, again, let's see if we can figure out how to fix this, because it's one thing to just reset everything and start over, but it's worthwhile to know what the problem is instead of just leaving it as a mystery. So let's zoom way in, and we can see that we got this all messed up part here. So move tool, And let's just 0 and 0. 0, and we might have to actually, yeah, on this one, okay, we need to have this one not 0. So 0 on that one, not 0 on that one, and 0 on that one. Okay. Now I can see from even this far out that it still hasn't fixed that pivot point. So let's try this. Let's click the move tool, select the object, and 0 point, and then hold it all the way down. Okay, that didn't fix that. 0 point, hold all the way down, and it still didn't fix that. So it's just odd to me that I can't resolve the problem with this vertex. And well, here's part of the problem. We've still got that extra vertex in there that we don't need. And let's reposition this one to 0. Okay, so that's at least part of the problem there. Oh, and I know another part of the problem with this version of the rocket. I never did recenter these, so we need to do that. Okay, so select all the vertexes here. Not that coordinate. Okay, so select that vertex, and we need to zero out the X, I believe, or is it the Z? It's the X. Okay, make sure that one's 0. And make sure that one's 0. That one's already 0. Okay, now those are, that line, that spline appears to be laying perfectly down that axis. Now, something's still off. So weird. Okay, let's kind of just look around here and see what could possibly be causing that. So let's go to the hierarchy tool, affect pivot only. And I think we need to zero these all out maybe, or just... Okay, so the pivot is definitely zeroed out. What about the roll? Okay, the roll on this. I don't know that that would necessarily affect that lathing process, but it possibly could. So let's, one of these is going to have to be 90, but let's zero out the ones that don't need to be. Okay, so that's got the roll set. Now let's look at the vertexes again. That's not the right tool, move tool. So that vertex there. And now I'm looking at the x-axis. Okay. Huh, I don't understand. It's very strange to me that you know, you can still have that weird problem there. Let's zoom way in and let's go to the move tool. Got that selected. And let's see if we can move the lathe axis. Actually, that's probably where the problem is at. It's the lathe axis that's off. All the vertexes and everything else is right, but the lathe axis itself was off. So let's zero that completely out. Zero it completely out here. Let me go to the other end. I think I'm starting to understand this weird anomaly that I'm seeing. It's this the lathe axis itself. It's not laying on the center line. Okay, can the lathe axis itself have a pivot point? Okay, let me put that there. Let's go to the other end. And go back to the other end and just see if we can it seems like as I move that lathe axis, it's kind of tilting the whole thing, so I need to actually rotate the lathe axis. Not the object, the lathe line. Okay, let's So somewhere in here, the line itself has been tilted, and I'm having a hard time figuring out how to make sure that the lathe axis line is 0, because that's okay. Okay, so let's do this. Let's 90. Zero it completely out. So with the rotation tool, okay, the lathe axis is 90, 0, negative 90. I guess that's what it needs to be for it to be lathed properly. So let's go to the move tool. And we should be able to zero that out, right? 0 on that end. So this part of the lathe line is above the x-axis or the y-axis, and this part is below the y-axis. That's the problem. So we need the y to be, what, 90? Negative 90, something like that? Or 0. Okay, let's come up to the top view for a minute. If we zoom way in here and go to the move tool, click on the axis line. Let's just see if we can straighten it out. Zoom out a little bit. Yeah, this is the problem with that I'm having with this fairing piece is this lathe line is it's off. But okay, rotation is okay, that's apparently where it needs to be. So how do we just tell the lathe line to be perfectly zero? That's like, seems like such a simple thing. Come down here and click on this part of it. If I put the base of it there. And the thing that's strange too, when I click the line and start to move it, you can see the X, Y, Z at the bottom change. But then when I let go, it's some other number. Okay, so I'll drag this one all the way to the tip. So the size of the lathe line seems to matter as well. Look at the rotation. Still just 90 on that side, negative 90 on that side. And apparently as we drag this all the way to here, then that gives us our perfect tip. But then it messes up the other side, because that's... Okay, that must have to do, I'm guessing, then with the pivot point or something. So let's make sure the object is selected. Go to the hierarchy tool, effect pivot point only. And we want center to object. And we'll zero that out, and zero that out. Okay, now the pivot point is perfectly zero. So let's go back to modify. And it's still not right. I don't get it. What do you have to edit to change that? That's so weird. Huh. Negative 90. No. 90 positive. Nope. 0. Let's go to the... Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this rocket. We'll leave it saved as 4B. It's driving me nuts that I can't figure that out. Let's reopen 4C. And this one has the, perfect axis line right down the middle. If we click on the move tool, that's not having an effect. Actually, let me reset and then reopen that. Okay, and let's just work on this fairing since it's right, and that's why I said, and sometimes, you know, it's actually just easier to delete something and remake it than it is to figure out what the problem is. But I don't really like I don't really like that kind of thing because I like to know how to fix things when they get out of whack. But in this case, let's click on our fairing, go to Vertex, and let's move the lines around a bit so it looks like a better fairing. And we'll click on that vertex and go to the Move tool. And I think it needs to be a little bit wider for one thing. So let's see what that looks like. Yeah, it definitely needs to be wider. So -6, we'll make it -8. And then we'll click on this one and make it the same. And we'll take this vertex, we'll right click it, and we'll make it let's make it a smooth. And then we'll just do an adjustment here, and that'll make the top part of fairing, you know, kind of more bullet shaped. And let's see what that looks like. And pretty good. Of course, this part's not looking so great, so let's fix that. And a couple of things we could do, we could actually just lower the whole fairing down so that this part fit inside of there. But in order to keep the rocket at the right length, we don't want to do that. So let's go to Vertex, and let's move this vertex. So Move tool selected. Actually, let's move this vertex. Actually, now that I think about it, let me click the segment and divide the segment so that we have a new vertex. And we'll move this one so that it's more, yeah, we'll bring it all the way down until it's touching the other part of the rocket. Let's zoom in, and let's move this vertex so that it's the same. Let's make it -26. And then we'll make this one -26. And that way those two are perfectly in the same y coordinate. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, click here, zoom out. Now if we lathe on the that, it still doesn't look quite right there, so let's go to Vertex. It's still kind of coming in too much. So we'll click here and we'll just drag this one down a bit so that by the time it reaches the rocket body, basically, there, I think that's better. Zoom out. Let's see if there's any roll in this part of it. So let's click the roll tool. I think that's okay. Not sure why it's not fitting on that side. I guess it's not quite going out to the edge on either of those sides. Let's click the select tool, select the object, look at that vertex. And I think we just maybe need to move it out a bit. Yeah, it's just kind of still in there, so click that vertex. Select the Move tool, and we'll just drag it out. Zoom in a bit more to the maximum level, and we'll fit it there. And let's see if that, it's kind of odd, huh? Still doesn't have it quite right there. Okay, so I'm not quite sure why that is either, but we'll maybe address the edges in another video. But let's look at the perspective view. If we come down here and we click on this tool that kind of looks like a compass, we can spin it around on its different axes. And you'll notice sometimes that some part of the rocket will have sort of a transparency. If you go to, I'm gonna have to remember where this is at. I saw it earlier. So let me find it. there's a tool or an option that you have to choose that will actually change that. Let me select the fairing. Maybe it only shows up if you select the fairing. So, okay, that's the create tool. That's not what we want. We want modify. Ah, here it is, flip normals. So it's the modify tool. Make sure the object is selected, then flip normals, and then that'll make it, opaque. Now click on this tool so we can kind of rotate the rocket around a bit. And things are taking shape. It's a bit better. It's quite a bit better than it was before. Now we've got, at least now we have the object perfectly centered between this point and this point, and we got all the rotation stuff worked out. If you click on the individual pieces and you have weird amounts of rotation, you can zero those out. So, the just small technical things that we needed to do to make the rocket better. And we're coming up on about 30 minutes, so I'll go ahead and end this video here. And in the next video, we'll take this rocket and we'll put it into a configuration file, and we'll look at it inside of Orbiter to see what it looks like. And that'll be important because we'll have to change the touchdown points. And the touchdown points is a very confusing part of the rocket configuration. So I definitely want to kind of show how we need to adjust our touchdown points in order to make the rocket appear that it's sitting on the ground instead of sitting half in the ground and half out of the ground. So that's going to be it. Let me switch views here. And if you like this part of the video, please do hit the like button down below. Links are in the description, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next video.